Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Stats. So, this is the first episode of my football podcast. My name's Isaac, and I will be your host for this series. And to start this first episode, this is going to be my favorite players on each team, or my favorite player on each team for this 2025 NFL season. I was going to go live and do this, but I couldn't because YouTube's weird and it doesn't allow you to go live instantly. But it's whatever. So I kind of want to tell you about how I got into football, and that will relate to the topic of this video, why I chose to do this sort of video first. Now, you might guess by the jersey I'm wearing that I am from somewhere near Kansas City, but that's actually not true. Where I live, the home team is the Minnesota Vikings. So that's the home team where I am, and you might be saying, like, traitor. Well, here's the thing. I got into football a very different way than most people, like, around me did. So when I was little, I liked three teams: the Detroit Lions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the San Francisco 49ers, because I thought their uniforms looked the coolest. I didn't watch football at this time. I didn't know anything about the game. I didn't even know like how it was played. I didn't know what the lines on the field meant or anything. So this was just like a little like 5-year-old me, like, oh, I like the blue team, that's the Lions. I like the red team, that's the Chiefs. Like, what have you. So I didn't really have any real football knowledge. I was just like, yeah, go whatever. Go Lions. And I didn't care for the Vikings because, like, I don't care about the color purple. Like, who, like, I was just told I had to cheer for the Vikings. And that seemed kind of weird to me. Like, I'm going to cheer for whatever team I want to cheer for. And that kind of gave me a little bit of resentment towards the home team. And so I've never really felt any, like, attachment towards the Vikings. Like, yeah, they're the closest team to where I live. But, like, that doesn't matter. I'm going to cheer for whichever team I want to. And I got to about 8 years old. It was the 2017 NFL season. And that was when I first actually started watching the games. And I was like, I should probably pick an actual favorite team and like try to find out what I like to watch in football. And I was trying to watch my favorite team. I was trying to watch the Lions, Chiefs, 49ers. And I realized very quickly that the Lions were not very good. They had Stafford. Stafford was their quarterback at the time, and I was a fan of him. I like Matthew Stafford. He's a cool guy. But the Chiefs really intrigued me because they were probably, I don't want to say they were the best. I don't remember how the 49ers did that season, but the Chiefs were decent that season. They made the playoffs at least. They had Alex Smith at quarterback, but they had one player that really intrigued me, and that's Tyreek Hill. So when I was little, the first real football player I ever heard of was Adrian Peterson, and he had a really unique skill set, and that is something that I ended up liking. I was like, whoa, is this Adrian Peterson guy? Is he the best running back of all time? And my dad told me about this guy named Barry Sanders. And Barry Sanders played for the Lions, and I was like, wow, the Lions had the best running back of all time? That's pretty cool. I like the Lions. So then he told me a bit more. He showed me some like Barry Sanders highlights, and I was like, yo, he's like one of my favorite athletes, So the skill set that Barry Sanders had was something that I wanted to see. I wanted to see a unique skill set in an NFL player. And honestly, the Vikings didn't have Justin Jefferson back then. They didn't really have any standout players. They had like Stephon Diggs, but like he was whatever. So like there wasn't really a standout player on the team at that time. But I started watching the Lions, Chiefs, 49ers, and I saw Tyreek Hill. And he had a standout ability, his speed. And ever since then, I've kind of been a fan of the fast players, which is why I got my boy Xavier Worthy's jersey on. So you might be able to guess what my favorite Chiefs player is. But regardless, I've kind of fallen into a weird category as far as like fan bases go. I like multiple teams, but more than that, I really cheer for the players on the team more than an individual team itself. Like I want to see cool plays. I want to see cool stats. That's why I named this channel Beyond the Stats. Like I love statistics, and I think cool players who put up cool statistical like numbers, that's what I want to see in football. And I don't just want to cheer for the home team just because they're the home team. Like I don't care. So I've been a Chiefs fan before they had Mahomes. I was a Chiefs fan when I was little, when they had the team, and I was like, okay, Tyreek Hill's there, so I'm gonna keep watching these teams. And then in 2018, Mahomes was drafted. And as someone who was already a fan of the Chiefs, I was like, dang, this team is gonna be good. And they were good. They made it to the AFC Championship game that year. And I was watching them. And that's kind of how I kind of blended into becoming a Chiefs fan. Now, the Lions were not great, so I still wanted the Lions to succeed, and I'm happy that they're succeeding now. Like, it's great. Like, the Chiefs and the Lions are doing well. But the Chiefs were kind of the one that I followed the most simply because they were winning. Like, not to say that as like a bandwagon way. I was just like, they were winning, so it was easier to watch them more, and they had more players that actually did cool things, like Mahomes, like Hill, like Travis Kelce, what have you. But I will say, even through all the ups and downs, I've still been a Chiefs fan. I've stayed loyal even when they haven't looked too good. I've been a fan of them, and even when the Lions haven't done good, I've been a fan of the Lions. I've not shying away from the fact that the Lions were like the first team I was ever like a really big fan of. So I don't want you guys, anyone who was watching this, I don't want you guys to think of me as a Chiefs fan, even though that's the team that I primarily follow. I don't want you to think of me as a Lions fan, because that's the other team I follow. I want you to think of me as an NFL fan and a fan of football and cool stuff that happens in football, you know? So now we're going to go through the list, all 32 teams. I'm going to tell you my favorite player on each team. And I wanted to make it so that it's not just like, basic. So I'm not just going to go with like the best player on every team. So like for Minnesota, I didn't pick Justin Jefferson. I'm not just going to pick the quarterback every time. I'm not just going to pick someone who's the best on the team, clearly. I'm going to pick someone who I think has a unique skill set and who I think can succeed and who I want to succeed in this upcoming season. So I think this will be a recurring thing where I come back to this list of players and see like how they did in the previous week, what have you. So we'll go through these teams in the order of like divisions. I'm going to go through the objective order of what every team should be, which is starting with NFC and then AFC. You go north, east, south, west around the compass. So we start with NFC North, end with AFC West. And just because I live in Minnesota, we're going to start with the Vikings. And my favorite Vikings player currently is J.J. McCarthy. So, I mean, this one, it was hard to pick a non-quarterback. I picked him because I think with Kevin O'Connell's schemes, he's going to do decent. Like, I mean, we saw what he did with Sam Darnold, and like Sam Darnold went from being like a complete bust on the Jets, completely not good at all on the Panthers, and I think he played for the 49ers or something. But like once he got to the Vikings, he balled out, and I think that is mostly Kevin O'Connell's doing. But J.J. McCarthy, a college football championship winning quarterback who had a similar like level of coach during that time, he's used to having good coaching around him, and so I think he'll fit the scheme pretty well. He's got great receivers with like Thielen now coming to town, back to Minnesota. He's a fan favorite up here. But yeah, I think McCarthy's going to do well this season. I think he's not going to be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I think he might even be like in the half to upper echelon. So that's one player that I'm looking at to start this season. Next, we have the Packers, the good old cheeseheads. I'm going to go with Matthew Golden. So, I mean, this one could be a little bit of bias. Like, he went to college with Worthy, was like the wide receiver 2 for Quinn Ewers, or whoever the quarterback was in Texas when Worthy was there. Probably wasn't Quinn Ewers. I don't know much about college football, honestly. I just kind of watched the NFL. But Matthew Golden, I mean, the Packers needed a wide receiver 1, and I think Matthew Golden's going to do it. I hope. So, yeah. Golden, he's got the speed, he's got the talent, and I think he's going to succeed. I think, especially with the addition of Micah Parsons, the Packers might actually be able to make the playoffs this year. Because, I mean, before landing Micah Parsons, I was predicting the Packers would probably get 4th in the NFC North, because NFC North is going to be a tough division this year, especially with Ben Johnson going to the Bears. I still think the Lions are going to win, but at this point, I don't see the Packers getting last. The Vikings are the most wild card. They can go anywhere from 4th to 2nd for me, just depending on how McCarthy does. But I think he'll do good. I think the Bears are going to get last again. Vikings and Packers are interchangeable for the top 2. I think they might both make the playoffs, though. And then Lions at 1 is my prediction there. So next, we got the Lions, my favorite team in the NFC. And this is the one where I actually couldn't pick, because there's 2 players that I really love on the Lions that I want to see do good this season. One of them is Aiden Hutchinson, coming off of the season-ending injury last year. I think he's going to go ballistic this season. I hope he can come back and be just as good as he was. In my eyes, he's still a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And then the other player is Jahmyr Gibbs because, I mean, he's the most Barry Sanders-like guy that the Lions have right now. He's a fast running back. He can do a lot of stuff. And he kind of came out of nowhere, I'm going to be honest. Like 2 years ago, no one knew who Jahmyr Gibbs was. Like, I first heard of him last year when he started, like, going off with David Montgomery. But, yeah, I think he's due for a great season again, and I hope he does well. I especially like that he's changed his jersey number to 0. I think that's, like, a lot of aura there. I mean, any single-digit number has aura, let's be honest here. Okay, then Chicago. I would just say Ben Johnson here because, you know, that is someone that I think will succeed in Chicago, but I can't pick a coach. So I'm going to go with their newly drafted tight end, Colston Loveland. I personally think it was the right pick to take him over Tyler Warren. Can't exactly explain why. I feel like he knows what it's like to be on a competing team. I don't know if that's a great reasoning, but we'll see. But yeah, Loveland, I think he's going to be a good tight end. I think he'll usurp Cole Kmet as the tight end 1 in the Bears offense, and he'll be a good target for Williams. I do think the NFC North is probably going to be the best division in football again this year. They might even all be playoff contenders, I'm not even going to lie. But yeah, Colston Loveland, I think, is my favorite Bears player for this year. We'll see how he does. Next, we're moving on to the NFC East. We'll start with the Giants, where I have Dexter Lawrence. He's been one of the only bright spots in the Giants organization for the past couple of years, especially on the defense. I would have picked Malik Neighbors if I didn't want to not pick the basic person every time, but I mean, yeah, that's pretty much obviously the basic pick would be Malik Neighbors. But I want to pick Dexter Lawrence because, he's been doing decent. He's one of the most solid defensive players, especially on a team like that. With Abdul Carter helping him out, I think that might be actually a pretty formidable defensive line this year. So we'll see. Hopefully their secondary can hold up. I doubt it, though. Okay, next, Philadelphia, the team that beat my Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith. So Devontae Smith is what I believe to be the best wide receiver 2 in the league, and I say this as a Worthy fan. But yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, Smith, I think he's a super good gadget receiver, can do a lot of the things well. I don't even know if he would work too well. If A.J. Brown went out, I don't think their receiving core would thrive too well because I don't think he fits too well in a wide receiver 1 spot. But he does great as a wide receiver 2 for Jalen Hurts, and I think he'll continue doing good this year. I think he's my favorite player on the Eagles. I mean, with teams that I don't like for whatever reason, it's a lot easier to find players I do like because it's just what's the one that I hate the least, you know? I mean, we'll probably get into my quarterback rankings in a different video, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is top 5. He's close, but I don't think he's top 5 right now. Anyway, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. And, you know, I probably wouldn't have picked Micah Parsons anyway because I feel like that's a basic pick. But, Dallas is just kind of, it's a joke at this point. What are they doing? You gotta keep Micah Parsons. It's just a complete travesty what's gone on down there. And so, honestly, I think my only real bright spot for the Cowboys this year is going to be Brandon Aubrey. So I picked him as my favorite player. I think he has got the best odds of anybody to break the field goal record, which I think will happen this year. I hope it does. I hope the preseason Cam Little kick wasn't just a fluke and that it'll actually happen in the regular season. Somebody will break the record. But yeah, Brandon Aubrey, he's my favorite Cowboys player. I hope he breaks the record. That'd be funny. Hopefully he's the next good kicker since Justin Tucker is now no longer a thing. But yeah. Washington. This is a very interesting pick. I also don't really like Washington because they beat out my Lions last year. Dude, I'm so pulling for a Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl. That'd be so amazing. Anyway, Washington, favorite player on the Commanders. This might be a controversial one, but I'm gonna go with Deebo Samuel. I think, other than maybe the last year, definitely 2022, he was probably their best receiver, even though he's gotten slower, gotten older, what have you. But I think a change of scenery is going to be what he needs. He's not going to be the wide receiver 1 on the Commanders, but I think he might be more like Devontae Smith and fit well into that wide receiver 2 role now. I don't think he's going to go off. He's going to have an amazing season, but I think he'll have his best season that he's had in a while. So yeah, that's the NFC East. Now we'll go to the NFC South, where I have Carolina first, and I'm gonna go with Chuba Hubbard. They have a lot of receivers, and I think Ted McMillan could be good. Xavier Legette, I think, is going to have a better season than he did last year. But ultimately, Chuba Hubbard is like their only real above-average piece on offense, except for maybe some linemen. I don't know how good their offensive line is. But yeah, Hubbard, he's going to be good. He's a solid option, solid running back. And I feel like the running backs that are good kind of change every year. Like there's ones at the beginning of the season that you don't really pay attention to. And like running backs change rapidly the most because running backs age the fastest. They have the shortest careers usually, unless your name is Derrick Henry. The running back career is probably going to be short, and your time at the top is going to be limited. But I think Chuba Hubbard is on the rise rather than on the fall at this point. There are some guys that I think are on the fall. They won't be on here, but I might talk about them in the future. We'll see. Next, we have New Orleans. So funny thing about New Orleans that you might not know if you're not from Vikings fan area is that up here, we don't like the Saints. Like, obviously we don't like the Packers, Lions, Bears, but like, aside from those teams, the team that Vikings fans hate the most is probably New Orleans because of Bounty Gate. So there's no Saints fans up here, and I've kind of been conditioned to hate the Saints as well because like, even though I'm not a Vikings fan, like Bounty Gate's not a cool thing. Like I'm not a fan of Sean Payton and what he did there. And it's easy to hate on Sean Payton now because he's coaching the Chiefs rivals as well. But yeah, no, I don't like a lot of what New Orleans does, especially since they keep stealing the Chiefs defenders. Like literally all the Chiefs players are going to New Orleans for some reason. Like I don't know why that is. But for New Orleans, they're not very good this year, so there's no real reason to like hate on them too bad, I suppose. But my favorite player, honestly, is going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry just because his name is Kool-Aid. And he might be a starting cornerback for the team this year. It'd be great. Yeah, I don't know. There's not much bright spots in the Saints. I think Kamara is due for a slide at some point. Like he's on the downswing, and mark my words, he's not gonna keep it up. He's not Derrick Henry. Unless you're Derrick Henry, you can't stay at the top for that long. Like he's gonna go down eventually, and I think this is the year. So yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry because his name is Kool-Aid. That's about all I have to say about the Saints. Next, Atlanta. I've got Drake London. So I think Drake London is one of the more underrated receivers in the league. Now Bijan gets a lot of like respect just because he's like the number one in fantasy. And by the way, I don't really do fantasy football. I don't know what it is. Like this year, for the first time, my friends have kind of roped me in a league. So like I'm doing it this year, but like I'm not really gonna pay much attention to it. Let's be honest. But, like, I haven't really done fantasy football. I've never really been into that. Because, like, the best players in fantasy football are just the players that are on bad teams with no competition. Which kind of, like, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But Drake London is someone who kind of gets overshadowed by Bijan. Just because Bijan is, like, the fantasy, like, running back one or whatever. And Bijan is good. But, first of all, I think that would be the basic pick. And second of all, I think Michael Penix is going to be decent. I don't think he's going to be decent enough for me to put him as like my favorite player that might do good, but I think Drake London is going to have a lot of yards this year, and he's going to be pretty good. So, yeah. Next, we have Tampa Bay, and I'm going to go with Bucky Irving here. I think he's going to be another one of those guys that kind of like builds off. He's still going to go on the upswing as far as running backs go. Like, he's going to be a good one, and while Rachaad White might steal a little bit of the carries, I don't think he's going to be enough. I think Bucky Irving is still going to be a solid back this year, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the NFC West. Another thing I didn't really mention is I tried to separate it like by positions a lot. I try to have like a lot of different positions. I try to not just pick wide receivers, even though they're usually my favorite position just because of Tyreek Hill. I guess running backs too, but like, and I also tried to vary it up based on like rookies, second year, third year, older guys. Like I tried to vary that up too. But one rookie that I think is going to do really good here this year is Arizona's Will Johnson. I think the Cardinals defense is going to be like actually decent this year for like the first time in a while. And I think Will Johnson is going to be one of the main reasons why one of the best steals in the draft, one of the best cornerbacks available. I hope he does good because I like the Cardinals. They're a cool team, and their defense needs to like help the offense out a little bit because like I think it'll be decent, but like Kyler is not the best quarterback in the league. Let's be honest. They need a little bit of help. So moving on now to the Rams, I have my first ever favorite quarterback in the league, Matthew Stafford. I still think he's got gas in the tank. I'm not going to lie. He's like one of those ageless wonders. I don't know what's happening. Like last year, and especially with the receivers that he has this year, I think he's going to have one of his better years. I don't know if he's going to go full Brett Favre and like have his best year of his career, but I think this is easily the best receiver core he's had, unless you just count like Megatron and that's it. But like, I think best 1-2 punch of receivers he's had for sure. Yeah, Matthew Stafford, I think he's going to be good this year. Even, I don't know. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Puka, were they ever really good at the same time? I suppose that could maybe count as like best receiving core he's had. But I think depending on if Devontae slips, because he might, but I don't know. I think he's still going to be okay. And Devontae Adams is the wide receiver too. You know, honestly, I retract what I said before. Devontae Adams is going to be the best wide receiver two in the league. The only problem I have is he's never really experienced being a wide receiver two before, which might be an issue, but we'll see. Next, we've got Seattle. Funny thing about Seattle is they seem to always throw the ball so much. Like they seem to be such a passing team, but I think eventually they're going to have to realize that like running the ball is useful. If you know what I mean, like Super Bowl 49 flashbacks, you know, that you got to run the ball. Anyway, so I think my favorite Seattle Seahawk for this year is going to be Kenneth Walker 3. He's going to do good this year. They're going to run the ball more, and he's going to get a lot of carries. He's going to be one of the better running backs, and it'll be cool. San Francisco used to be one of my favorite teams. Since then, I've realized that they're kind of lame, and they also kind of beat the Lions in the NFC Championship a while back, which I'd rather have the Lions have made it to the Super Bowl, but whatever. But it seems like everybody's always injured on the 49ers. And as much as I would love to like Brock Purdy, I think it is a little bit of a product of the system. And ultimately this year, I think my favorite 49er is going to be Ricky Pearsall, because I think he is on schedule for breakout as a wide receiver too. And I think he could be up there with Devontae Smith and one of the best wide receiver twos in the league. So yeah, Pearsall, and that's all of the NFC teams. So now let's go to the AFC. Okay, so we're going to start with the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to start by saying that the Cleveland Browns are my least favorite team in the National Football League. When I first got into football, the year 2017, they went 0-16. And I vividly remember asking my dad, why are the Browns so bad? And he had an interesting answer to me. He's like, well, teams fluctuate back and forth depending on, like, because if you're bad, you get good draft picks and then you're there. But then once they're, like, retire, then you might be bad again, what have you. But the Browns have been bad for so long, like, I don't know. And even when they became, like, the lovable underdog team once they got, like, OBJ and stuff, I don't know. There was just something a bit off about them that I didn't like. And then they went and they got Deshaun Watson. So that kind of sealed it. Plus, also, they have the ugliest jerseys in the entire league. They don't have a real logo. They don't have a real even mascot. Like, please change your name to the Bulldogs and adopt that logo. Like, that's a cool logo, your alternate, like, Bulldog logo. Call yourselves the Bulldogs. You already have the dog pound in your stadium. That would be a better name than the Browns. And get better looking uniforms, please. They're so ugly. Anyway, I don't like any of the Cleveland Browns. But I suppose the one that I think is going to have success this year is the linebacker Carson Schwarzenegger. I feel like there's just some players that you kind of just see them and you're like, there's no way he's not going to be good. Kind of like Myles Garrett. Like, Myles Garrett was drafted and like, you know he's going to be good. Similarly, it's usually defensive players too for some weird reason. But like, yeah, Carson Schwarzenegger, I think he's going to be good. He's going to be like a Pro Bowl linebacker, maybe even. I don't know. We'll see. Based on what happened in the preseason, we don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I don't like any of the Cleveland Browns. Another team I don't like very much is the Cincinnati Bengals because they disrespect my Chiefs sometimes. Like, it ain't Burrowhead. It ain't your place. Anyway, Speaking of which, the only real player that I haven't seen doing much of that is Joe Burrow himself. So I'm going to pick Joe Burrow for my favorite there. I think he was a little bit underrated last year. I think it's hard to say. I think he's probably third best quarterback in the league. I don't think he's worse than like some people. Right now, with how they've been performing, Mahomes is number 4. But this year, as a Chiefs fan, we got the best receiver core that we've had in Mahomes' tenure. So I think this year Mahomes is going to be your number 1. Lamar is going to be your number 2. He's been good for a while. And then Burrow is going to be number 3. He still has an amazing receiver core. He's still going to ball out every year. But if they can pay the dang defense, maybe they can be good. But they're not doing that for some reason. They just re-signed Trey Hendrickson for 1 year. And then, what? They're going to go through this whole thing again next year? Like, bruh. Yeah. That leaves, of course, Josh Allen in the 4th spot. But we'll talk about that in a different video. As far as those 4 guys, I think those are consensus, the top 4 quarterbacks. I don't think I need to explain myself there, but yeah, we'll get to that in a later video. Anyway, Pittsburgh is next, and I picked TJ Watt. He's the anchor to the defense. I don't think there's much to explain this one. It might be a little bit of a basic pick as well, but, I don't really care. I think that the defensive unit of Pittsburgh is what's taken them to the playoffs, taken them to all these winning records so many times. And TJ Watt doesn't seem to be slowing down, so until that happens, I think he'll be the guy there. And it's not like the offense has much to watch, let's be honest. Even, like, DK Metcalf, he's slowing down. Like, I don't even know who their starting running back is. Caleb Johnson, maybe, or something. And then Rodgers. I don't even want to talk about Rodgers. I don't have any faith in him after what's happened the last couple years. I think the ACL injury just really did a number on him. Next, Baltimore. Now Baltimore is a team that I actually like. Out of the 3 major contenders in the AFC to the Chiefs, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore, a lot across the past couple of years, Baltimore is easily my favorite one because Lamar Jackson is a very fun quarterback to watch. But I didn't pick Lamar Jackson for the favorite just because I thought it would be a little bit too basic. While Lamar Jackson probably is the player I enjoy watching the most on the Ravens, the player that I think has the best chance of doing better this year is Isaiah Likely. And I think that's because Mark Andrews he's hit his peak and is now on his decline. The one drop in the divisional game, I think that might push him down a little bit more. And I think Isaiah Likely has a very, very real chance to be the tight end 1 by the end of the season. I think, in fact, I would probably pick that. I'd probably say, yeah, Isaiah Likely will probably be the tight end 1 on Baltimore. And Baltimore's never been a real passing team, but I think Flowers is okay, but overall I think it fits more in their realm to do the shorter throws just because of Lamar's mobility and such. So I think Isaiah Likely might even be the number 1 receiver on that team. And AFC East, we've got TreVeyon Henderson for the New England Patriots. People are comparing him to Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, and overall, I got to see him actually play against starters in an NFL game before I do anything like that. But he has been decent. He's been good. I liked his first carry, his first touch as a NFL player in the preseason, where he got the 70-some yard touchdown. That was cool. Or was it 100? I don't know. I don't remember how many yards it was. It was a super long touchdown off a return. You love to see it. If he does do returns, that'd be super funny, but I think he'll probably end up just being their main running back. And I do think the Patriots offense is going to be more functional than it has been. I think Drake May is a good quarterback. So they'll be able to move the ball down the field, and the more you move down the field, the more you're going to be able to move down the field, if you know what I'm saying. So that'll allow TreVeyon Henderson to get more carries, and I think he'll be a pretty good, solid rookie running back. Next, we have Buffalo, another team that I don't like because they're a rival to my Chiefs. But I don't like them a little bit less than I don't like the Bengals, just because they kind of always lose to us or whatever. But I don't really have any Bills that I like. Josh Allen's annoying because he always beats us in the regular season. Can we just I'd rather beat them in the regular season than in the postseason, but then if we lose to them in the regular season, everybody's picking them to win when really they should be picking us to win. Anyway, my favorite Buffalo Bill is going to be Christian Benford because I think he's a pretty solid cornerback. That's about all I have to say, really. There's not much that I like about the Bills. All their receivers are not very good. James Cook is okay, I guess, but I don't know, he just kind of rubs me the wrong way. He also rubs the Chiefs defenders the wrong way as he brushes by them and goes in for a touchdown. Why can't you tackle the guy, please? Obviously, we're not going to pick Allen. I guess I could have picked Dalton Kincaid. He's decent, I suppose, but he's not anything real special. Maybe I should have picked a lineman like Deion Dawkins. That would have been funny. Whatever. Anyway, Miami, another one of my favorite teams just because they got my boy Tyreek Hill. When Tyreek Hill left, I almost became a Dolphins fan because I was I got into football because of the Dolphins, or because of Tyreek Hill, and now he's on the Dolphins, and they got a lot of players. They got a lot of speed players that are cool and stuff. So that's more proof that I enjoy the football because of the spectacle that the players do, not because of a certain team. But ultimately, I was just I've been a Chiefs fan for 3-4 years now. I've kind of stuck with this team. I was a Chiefs fan since I was little, but I've been watching the Chiefs for 3-4 years now. So I'm gonna stick with my team. I'll be watching the Dolphins to see if anything happens. I'd be great with them going to the Super Bowl. I think it'd be really cool. As long as they don't beat my Chiefs on the way. But yeah, either way, Miami, another one of my favorite teams, just because of the speed. And I did not pick Tyreek Hill for my favorite player just because, again, I thought it would be the basic pick. And at this point, I think he is probably going downhill. And if I'm going to be honest, he's not as fast as he used to be. So I'm going to pick Devon Achane. And while I think Devon Achane might also be kind of getting to that point, I don't think he's there yet. I think this season will be his last good one potentially, unless he is one of those running backs that can just get old and still be good. But he's one of the fastest running backs in the league. He's gonna have that speed still this year at the very least, and I see him doing really good. I like Achane. I think he's a solid pick, and yeah, that's about it. The Jets. There is really no bright spots on the Jets roster except for Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. So I had to pick one of those two. I don't think really any one of them is more basic than the other. So I just picked Garrett Wilson because I think he's an underrated receiver. I think he's easily a top 10 receiver in the league. He's just never had anyone good to throw to him, and he's not going to have anyone good to throw to him this year either. So I don't know. There's not much to go by with the Jets, but I decided to pick Wilson because I think he's the most underrated player on that team, at least at his position. AFC South now. We've got Indianapolis, and for this one I picked Alec Pierce. This one is probably not going to pan out like it did last season, but the stats that he had last season with the insanely long touchdowns a whole bunch of times, that was cool. I like those. That made the Colts actually fun to watch when usually they're the most vanilla, boring, whatever team in the league. I don't pay any attention to what they're doing. Usually, even though they're in same conference as the Chiefs, I pay more attention to random NFC teams than I do to the Colts. Yeah, I don't know. There's not much I gotta say. I don't think Alec Pierce is gonna have as good a year as he did last year. In fact, I think Josh Downs might end up being the wide receiver 1 for them by the end of the year, so I might actually pick him now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know, we'll see. Next, Texans, Houston. I'm gonna go with Will Anderson Jr. I think he is a good defensive player. The whole defensive unit there is really good. I could have picked Derek Stingley, could have picked Danielle Hunter, but ultimately I went with Will Anderson just because I think he's the guy that holds down the fort. He did a lot for the team last year, and I think he'll continue to do it this year. I think the Texans will return back to their form, at least if CJ Stroud can do as good as he did his rookie year. I think they'll return to their form, and they might even have a chance to make the championship game. I'm not going to lie. If they keep that defense and they have a decent offense, they could be one of the powerhouses in the AFC. Tennessee is another team with really not many bright spots. Even with Cam Ward, I don't really know what else they really did to bolster their stuff. Like they've got a decent pass defense with like L'Jarius Sneed, my boy, he used to be Chief. But ultimately, I think there's not really many players that I would say, oh, I like this player to watch this player play on the Titans. So I'm just pick Calvin Ridley. Like they're one good receiver. He is still good, even if he's like kind of getting old now. Honestly, he might be on that year where he's starting the downswing. We'll see. But I still think with a massive upgrade at the person passing to him, he's gonna do at least as good this year as last year. So I don't think he's quite there yet. Jacksonville. This is another team that I think if they get a good quarterback, this could be one of the best teams in the AFC. But the fact is they don't have a great quarterback right now. I don't really believe in Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's the answer. I don't really know much about like how good their defense is, or at least their secondary. I think they got a pretty good pass rush. But hopefully my favorite Jacksonville player will bolster their secondary, that being Travis Hunter. I mean, there's not really someone else that you're going to pick here. Like, Travis Hunter is one of the most unique players we've seen. I really would hope they use him at cornerback just as much as they seem to be doing it as receiver. Like, they have Brian Thomas Jr., they have Diami Brown, I think. Like, those aren't bad receivers. Like, especially now BTJ. Like, I think he's due to be one of the like top 5 receivers in the league if he keeps up his pace, which I don't know if he will or not. If he won't, then obviously they'll need Hunter. But like, I can't think of a specific Jacksonville like player in their secondary off the top of my head. I mean, obviously, probably if somebody said him, I'd remember, but I don't know. I think Travis Hunter can help him in a lot of ways. And I think he's going to have a good rookie year in the league, hopefully. I would hope. And finally, AFC West. Starting with Denver, another team that I don't really like. I think one player that is going to like continue to do good is Courtland Sutton, who I think is probably the best receiver in the division. He's been consistent for a lot of years, and with Bo Nix going into year 2, I don't see that changing. I've always thought he's been a little bit underrated as a receiver. But yeah, there's not much I like about the Broncos, so we're just gonna move on to a team where I do have some more players that I like. The Raiders. The Raiders are a cool team. My favorite player is going to be Max Crosby. He does sack Mahomes a couple times, but at least like he has open respect for Mahomes. Like he seems like a guy who respects what Mahomes does, and I appreciate him for that. I appreciate I appreciate what he has to offer. I think it'd be cool to have him on the Chiefs. I think that'd be very interesting. I almost picked Brock Bowers here because I think Brock Bowers would be another person that I would want to be on the Chiefs. But yeah, we'll see. Max Crosby, good pass rusher. I think he's still going to be decent this year. They don't seem to age as much or as quickly as other players do. I mean, just look at Myles Garrett. But yeah. Second to last team we've got is the Chargers, and I went with Derwin James. It's hard to really analyze how good a safety is, but I think Derwin James might be one of the better ones, or one of the best in the league. But yeah, the Chargers. I think they'll probably get second in the division this year. If I'm going to be honest, they got a good coach again, Jim Harbaugh. He's going to be decent. I do think Justin Herbert is kind of underrated at quarterback. I think he's for sure a top 10 in the league. It's just he hasn't had a lot of good targets up until like last year. But this is where we're going to get into the last team on the list, the Kansas City Chiefs. My favorite Kansas City Chiefs player, other than Patrick Mahomes, is kind of the reason I wanted to not do basic, is because I would pick Patrick Mahomes. But one player that I think is going to make an impact this year is my boy, Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, yeah. So, here's my spiel. Worthy, okay, when Tyreek Hill left the Chiefs, I almost, became a Dolphins fan because he was the one who got me into the Chiefs. He was the player that I started following. But then, the thing that made me be like, I'm going to be a Chiefs fan for life, bro, is when they drafted my boy. the fastest guy in the draft, fastest man in the league. He's going to have an insane breakout year. And, probably Rice is a better pass catcher, but I think Worthy fits the skill set better. And my hot take, or I guess both my hot takes for the season this year is, number one, Ladd McConkey is the fourth best receiver in the AFC West, because the third is going to be Rashee Rice, two is Worthy, one is Sutton. And my other hot take is that Worthy is going to be the Chiefs wide receiver one by the end of the year. Not just because he's got the same speed and stuff as Hill, but like based on what I've seen from him, he wants to grow. He wants to be a difference maker on the Chiefs. And if you just see, like, yeah, he got off to a slow start, but like that, he was a rookie, like just going into the league, he was bound to do that. But if you only look at what he did in his last couple games and in the playoffs, if you look at his performance in the Super Bowl, like if they can do that a lot, if they can get the kind of touchdowns that he was getting at the end of the Super Bowl, like in the regular season, the Chiefs are going to be unstoppable this year. So there you have it. That is my favorite player on every NFL team. We will be coming back to this list, and I will kind of have rankings of like if they've exceeded or met or not met my expectations for them, because most of these players are people that I think are going to have a good year this year. That's kind of why I put them, except for like Kool-Aid McKinstry and all that. I don't know, he might have a good year. We'll see. But yeah, so here's just some little stats, because we are on Beyond the Stats here. There are 3 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 10 receivers, 2 tight ends, 0 O-linemen, 5 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 1 safety, 4 cornerbacks, and 1 specialist in this little list here. So, I mean, kind of favoring wide receivers because, they are my favorite position. And then for the ages, I've got 6 rookies, 5 that are in year 2, 6 that I would consider like relatively new, 11 that I would say are kind of like in the middle of their career, 3 that are like relatively old, and then 1 guy who's just a geezer, that being Matthew Stafford. Like, I think he's almost 40 by this point. Like, he's going to be on the downswing eventually, but he's still good for the time being. Anyway, so I do plan on making an episode in the free time or whatever, maybe in the off season, that's kind of going over this basically, but all time, like my all time favorite players on every team, because that one will be a little bit different. Just the player that, like, if I was in that era where this player was playing, I'd be a fan of this team. Like if young me, when trying to search for a team to like was there watching that team, like that would be my favorite team, So like, for example, just to give you a little taste of that, in 1998 I would have been a Vikings fan because they had Randy Moss, the greatest receiver of all time. So, and in the 90s I would have been a Barry Sanders fan because Barry Sanders, greatest running back of all time. So yeah, that's basically, but that's for another video. We don't need to get into that yet, but yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for watching the first episode of Beyond the Stats with me, Isaac, and I will see you guys in another video, probably in a couple days, where I will pick the games for the first week of the 2025 NFL season. So I will see you guys then.